And I wanted to focus a little bit on the clipping level because we got some interesting results with that earlier. So I'm keeping symmetry. Let me actually bring symmetry to about the halfway mark. And then we'll just kind of go through the whole range of clipping level settings. So I'm bringing up clipping level. Now, this is one kind of interesting type sound that I kind of ran into. And then right there, what I found for myself is if I had one parameter set, as recommended in the manual, to one setting and then kind of adjust the other one, you can kind of get an idea or a handle on how this module can best be utilized. So now that I have that setting, if I want to hear it, make it a little louder, I think I can bring up my level. And now I have a little bit more of that waveform. That's how I've been kind of incorporating it. Now you could have approached it the other way, you know, started with the high level and then gone backwards and done your clipping level, but I chose to do it this way. And you can see that there's quite a difference in the waveforms there. So that's with a triangle wave. Now let's look at our our sine wave processed in that same manner. So there you can see the top one is unprocessed sine, and below is processed sine. Okay? Alright, now let's keep going with our clipping level a little bit more. I'm going to go a little higher, and you can kind of see that lower peak in the process signal is kind of dropping out. And then now it's almost like it's curving down at the bottom. So at that point I could bring this down a little bit, and then I get right back to my sine, oddly enough. Or if I bring it up and it's clipping, I can kind of tweak it and get something more interesting. Okay, so now that was with symmetry in about the middle setting. Okay, let's try over at the low setting of symmetry. And let's start with clipping level all the way down at the bottom. Let me bring my level down a little bit because it looks like it's a little bit too hard to see what's going on over there. Okay, so there we have basically an amplified sine wave. Now let's go in and kind of mess with our clipping level. And you can already hear a little bit of change. I don't know if you can really see it that well, but you can kind of see the lower end of the sine wave is now kind of almost bending in. And right about there, if I bring my level up now, it's almost like you can only see the positive part of the waveform. You're no longer seeing that lower end. Okay, let's go a little further with the clipping level. See where this takes us. And eventually it's going to become fairly inaudible. So right about there. Keep my symmetry level. Make sure it's all the way down. And bring up the level just a little bit so we can hear it a little more. And then bring clipping level all the way to the max. Now, of course, there's a lot of in-between settings that will provide subtle little changes to this basic adjustment. And you just kind of pan it until you find something that you actually like or you think is going to be useful for what you're doing. Okay, so that's symmetry level at 0. So let's try it all the way in the opposite end. I may need to bring down my level a little bit because it's a little loud. Okay, so if we remember there, at the fully top setting of symmetry, that's where we had the actual inverted version, or at least the appearing inverted version. If I had a higher resolution going left to right, I could see exactly how accurate that is. So I'm adjusting clipping level. Not really getting too many results here on the lower end of this. You can see right there. So from 0 to about 12, I'm not really having any kind of movement there. Let's try bringing up the level and then see if we can make anything happen in this like 0 to 5 setting. Other than a clip signal, we're not really getting that many interesting results on that side. So let's keep our symmetry level there and then kind of venture past the 12 o'clock setting of clipping level. Go a little further, bring down my level a little bit. And I think this is kind of that region where we weren't really getting as much shaping as we were just kind of an amplified signal. See right there, I hear a little bit of change happening. So why don't I do this? Let me keep my clipping level there, and then let me try and adjust my level setting. See if I can get something interesting. And there we just have a pretty nice overdriven signal. Okay, so I think you get the idea with that. Now let's try it in the opposite direction. So let's pretend like I just started out and I have my level set up. My symmetry's at 0, and I'm moving my clipping level, and I've decided, okay, that's where I'm going to leave my clipping level, right there on 5. So now I can work in the opposite direction and kind of adjust my symmetry settings until I find something that's kind of interesting. Right there, I kind of like the shape of that waveform right there, so I'm going to bring the level up. And that's pretty similar to what we had before, I think, where we had the little peaks at the bottom end, or the little dips. And then if I adjust symmetry a little more, kind of get some interesting tones there in the middle. Now when I start going over into this region, you can kind of hear that kind of overdriven signal comes back again. Let me back it off a little bit. So I want to get back to this little region. And let's look at our triangle wave with that. So I'm going to unpatch sine wave, go to triangle wave again. Yeah, and that's pretty similar to what we had when we started out playing around with some of these settings. Okay, so let's continue. Let's try maybe a higher clipping level. So we'll go over here somewhere, up at the upper end. And now let's kind of play with the symmetry settings. So I'm bringing down to about there. That's a fairly interesting shape, I think. Let me try and amplify it a little. And that one looks like to be a little elusive for me. So right there, and I have my amplification all the way up. I could bring down my clipping level a little bit. But that is a fairly distinct shape there. So yet another version of a shape that you can get with this. And I probably shouldn't have adjusted my clipping level because we were experimenting with a high setting, but let's go back to that high setting. And then there we have kind of just that little peaks. And then there we have no sound. If I bring my level down, eventually we'll get no sound at all. So I'm going to bring symmetry up. And let's kind of venture into the top area. And I think we saw earlier that when we bring symmetry all the way up in our clipping levels here, that we get kind of that nice overdriven sound. Okay, so we tried clipping in the middle, clipping on the side over here at 10. Let's try it at the lower setting. So we'll try it not at 0, but maybe right about 1 or something. My symmetry's on high, so let's bring it back a little. And you can see our triangle there is kind of getting a little bit bent up at the top. Like that top little area is not as symmetric as it was before. And even the bottom is getting a little bit curved as well. Bring symmetry back a little bit. And right there we're getting a fairly interesting sound. I kind of like these little thin sounds. Similar to like what you would get out of a bandpass or a high-pass filter with the resonance setting. Kind of in the middle range. And I'm just going to bring symmetry back a little. So clipping level again is at 1, and symmetry level is over at 0, or pretty close to it. Try bringing level back a little bit. So I'm bringing my level back to about there, and then now I'm going to play with symmetry and see if I get different results. Well, there we just see it kind of flipping over. And so that in a nutshell is kind of a nice little walkthrough of some of the different settings that you have. Now, the only thing that I can really say about the approach that I kind of took is what was kind of recommended in the manual is, you know, you keep one setting static and then you kind of adjust some of the other settings until you find a nice timbre that you want to use. And that actually was a fairly good way to approach it. I found this one to be a little bit easier to kind of get in there and get something quick, as opposed to before when I was using the A137-1, if you watched that series a while back. This one I found it to be a little bit more immediate, but on the other hand, this one only has 2 really key settings for you on this one, so kind of less to manage, and definitely has a different set of timbres that you can achieve with the A137 compared to the A116. For example, the A137 also processes CVs, whereas this module, the A116, is intended to be used with audio only. So there you have it. Hopefully you found this demo useful. In the next segment that we're going to be doing, we're going to dive in and kind of maybe do a little bit of modulation with this, kind of see what we can kind of accomplish with using the clipping CV and the Symmetry CV a little further, and then maybe just see if there's anything else that we can kind of squeeze out of these demos. So I do welcome your feedback, so if you found something extremely useful in this demo or in any of the other videos that you've watched, I do encourage you to leave that feedback on the video or videos. For those of you that have been leaving comments out there, I do appreciate that, because that just gives me a way that I can improve the videos. So for the next videos, as I said, we're going to be kind of going a little further with modulation with the A116. So hopefully you'll join us for that, and keep on patching out there.